We're gonna get this started here, and we're gonna move down to Los Angeles. So this was gonna be more like a road trip. We're gonna hop in our car and we're gonna drive to some locations. We're gonna stop and we're gonna hike to a couple of other locations that are here. The first spot that we are going to stop is Red Rock Canyon State Park up in the Mojave Desert. This is a really interesting place to visit. It is about 120 miles north of Los Angeles. And what we're seeing here are layers of red and white sediment that have been deposited over millions of years. And then over the top of this is volcanic rock that has been pressed and placed there to preserve it. Over time, this rock has been eroded and with wind and rain and water to expose what we see here today. The red that you see here is actually iron oxide or rust that's there. This state park is available for recreational uses. So you can camp here. It will cost you about $25 a night. And some of the recreational opportunities you have here is hiking, horseback riding, or you can go off-roading. Just make sure that you have the right license to do that. I don't know how much they actually check, but just in case. Let's hop off of here. And we are gonna hop in our car and move a little bit further north to a really cool area along the 395. As we are driving, we will look up to our right at some point and we will see this large cinder cone mountain. It is actually called the Red Cinder Mountain or the Red Mountain, and it's actually a volcano. Thousands of years ago, this area called Fossil Falls was created with water coming down from the north, running into the lava magma and creating these really awesome looking features of black stone out in this area. This area created a lot of obsidian that was used by the first people. And we can find remnants of this obsidian out on the coast of California through trades that these tribes used to trade with people on the coast. If you do find any artifacts out here, you are asked to report that to the Bureau of Land Management, the BLM, so that they can come out and document it and make sure that it is used for it is protected for future people to find. This is also a recreational place for you to camp. So camping out here on the BLM land is only $6 a night. So it's a little bit cheaper than the state park. And one of the big things that people like to do here with these rocks is climb as well as rappel. So you'll see people climbing through these formations that are created here. If you do go in the summer, it will get awfully hot here. So I would recommend that you bring a lot of water with you. We're on the east side of the 395. We're gonna pop over to the west side of the 395 for a quick minute to a location called Kennedy Meadows. Kennedy Meadows was built back in 1917 as a resort for people who wanted to come and explore the high Sierras. Today, it is still a resort where you can come, rent cabins out here, camp. They do have some restaurants out here. But one of the cool things for this is this becomes a little bit of a hub for people who are backpacking the Pacific Crest Trail, which is a trail that starts in Mexico in the southern and goes all the way up to Canada in the north. Or if we switch it and we start in the north, then we can go south. But you'll find here in the summer that this is a nice little resting point for people who are trying to do that 23,000 mile trek along the West Coast. We're going to continue to make our way up to the Owens Valley into our first stop, which will be Owens Lake. So this lake doesn't look so much like a lake to us right now, but was a lake back in the early 1900s until people from Los Angeles came up here and ended up buying the rights to the water. The people up here didn't think that this would cause any issue because of the amount of rain and water up here. But in 1913, after they signed the contract, 13 years later, this lake was dry. This lake, if it was full, would be 108 square miles. That's 12 miles across and 8 miles wide. If we think about that as a recreational opportunity for us today, we're missing out on something that long time ago, some things happened. You can go search the water right issue here. If you've seen the movie, the 1970 movie Chinatown, that is talking about this lake. In about 1997, there were some environmental issues that were being caused with this dry lake bed. And it was in this real fine powdered dust that would come up and move into people's lungs. So Los Angeles had to spend over $1 billion to move water and help keep this lake bed actually wet now. As you can see, some of the green, this is actually a damp lake bed to help reduce some of that fine dust. As we continue our way up through the Owens Valley, we're going to stop at our first town, Lone Pine. Lone Pine is a quaint little town along the Eastern Sierras, and we're going to stop here at the Eastern Sierra Visitor Center. If we want to do any backpacking up in the Sierras, we're going to come here first and get our permit if we don't have one already. If we look here to the east, we are going to see the White Mountains. And what we have on the other side of the White Mountains is Death Valley National Park. And in Death Valley National Park, we have the Badlands, which sits at 282 feet below sea level. If we pan around here, sorry if it's causing a little bit of sea sickness or motion sickness with this, is we have now the Eastern Sierras. And up here, we have Mount Whitney, which we'll visit a little bit later, which is the highest point in the lower 48 states, sitting at 14,500 and some feet. It's pretty amazing that the lowest point in the 48 states and the highest point in the 48 states are only about 132 miles away from each other. The next place we're going to pop into is the Museum of Film History here in Lone Pine. Back in 1920, Hollywood thought that this area was really good for filming and wanted to film up in this area. And since 1920 till today, there have been 400 movies filmed in this area. Just outside of Lone Pine is a place called Alabama Hills. And there are a few movies that I will touch upon here that have been filmed. In 1920, there was a movie called The Roundup. In 1938, The Lone Ranger was filmed out here. And then a little more recently, Django Unchained was filmed out here, even some parts of Gladiator. And if we look at our little inlay here, and we look a little bit closer into this, we can see Tony Stark standing there in the first Iron Man movie before he became Iron Man, showing off his wares that he wants to sell to the military. Filming still occurs out here, and this is a cute little place just to see what is out here. From here in Alabama Hills, we're going to make our way now up to the tallest point in the lower 48 states, which is Mount Whitney. Mount Whitney, like I said, sits at 14,505 feet. If we look right down here, we can see the little plaques to show us where the highest point is. If you want to hike to the top of Mount Whitney, you will need to apply for a lottery. This is a really busy hike, and we're going to pan over here to look down onto the Owens Valley. Super busy hike that they had to now require you to submit a permit. If you want to hike Mount Whitney, whether in a day or on a weekend, permits have opened. They are open from February until sometime in March. And you just need to go on, type in Mount Whitney permits into your computer. It'll send you to a site, and then you can fill out to get the required permits to hike up here. They only allow 100 day hikers to come up here. And they also only allow 60 people to come up and spend the night. And when you are up here in this area, you are not allowed to dig cat holes. So you will have to bring a wag bag, which is a bag that you will do your duty, and then you will close it up and you will put it in your pack and you will continue your hike for the day. So be prepared when you get up here that you will need to carry your business back home with you. We will not be climbing from the base of Mount Whitney. We actually head up to Whitney Portal, which will sit at about 8,300 feet. And then we will climb about 6,200 feet up, and then we will walk 6,200 feet down. On a day hike, this will be 22 miles. So you'll need to get up super early and be prepared to come home super late. If it's in the middle of summer and it's really busy with people coming up and down, you will need to make sure that you have enough time to make it both ways, as well as water going up and going down. From Mount Whitney, we're just going to pop back into Lone Pine for just a quick second. I always find that the Whitney Portal Hostel is a super cute place to visit. You do find a lot of people in the summer who are hiking the Pacific Crest Trail. And there's been a few times I've sat with people on that little bench right there and talked to them how their hike's going. A couple places that I enjoy eating in Lone Pine. I'm gonna be real simple. I like the Pizza Factory, great little place. There are a bunch of locals there. And then the Mount Whitney restaurant. They have some good burgers there. So if you're in town, you can stop by and check those out. Let's move on to our next spot along our trip, and we are going to stop at Manzanar National Historic Site. Manzanar was built during World War II as one of 10 relocation sites for Japanese Americans. So after Pearl Harbor happened, we ended up getting worried, not me or you, but United States government started getting worried, and they asked over 110,000 Japanese Americans to relocate from the coast to 10 different location sites in the United States, and this is one of them. We can see here with an old historic photo, the barracks that they lived in, and we got, looks like a couple young children running around playing here. If you want to know more about this, please visit mps.gov/MANZ, and you can learn more about this and how they're trying to maintain it for the history of what took place and the history now, so we don't forget. We're going to pop up to our largest city in the Owens Valley, and that will be Bishop, California, sitting at probably about just over 3,700 people. I say big, it's big for the Owens Valley, not really that big for Los Angeles. Here, there are a couple places that I really enjoy visiting when I come here. And number one, I used to love visiting the Mountain Light Gallery. Galen Rowell, the resident artist, is with his wife, Barbara, had a gallery of his artwork, photography, that to be more precise with that. This was the place where I really thought that, wow, I want to do more with photography. And I came in and I saw this picture and I was just blown away by it. And then I heard the interesting story about how you make photography work if it's not set for you. The little story goes, Galen was in a bus driving along after a storm, and then the clouds came up and then they saw this rainbow come out. This Tibetan monastery here, he saw that, got off the bus and ran about 2 miles back to line this shot up to make it beautiful like this. Now, it changes the story of how awesome this picture is, but it also makes the picture look pretty awesome itself. The Mountain Light Gallery has closed, and they are now closed. You can still visit their website to see what other artwork he has and the family has for that. This has now been taken over by the Mammoth Gear Exchange, and this is a used outdoor gear shop that is a consignment shop for people who no longer want to use their gear. I usually stop by here to see if there's any cool deals on stuff, anything that I don't want to pay full price for. They have bikes, skis, and snowboard. They have hiking gear from clothes to boots to poles to backpacks. So stopping in here, you can see if there is anything that you are interested in purchasing at a substantial lower cost than full price. They do have some stuff that is brand new in case you didn't want something that was used. Outside of Bishop and back in Alabama Hills are some really good climbing. So if you're really into climbing, there is the Owens River Gorge that has about over 300 sport climbing routes that you can check out. There's the Buttermilks that is just outside here, which is more bouldering, like large bouldering, not just little bouldering. Ugh, big bouldering there. And then in Alabama Hills is also another good area for sport climbing. Just to the east of Bishop is the Owens River. So if you're into fishing, there is some good fishing here also. So it does have a lot of recreational opportunities for people, not just backpacking, but if you want to go fishing, or I've been kayaking down the Owens River. You can kayak. In the summer, you'll find people that will also tube it, just hop on a tube and float down the river and get out of the heat of the valley and cool off in the river. So please go to mountainproject.com and check this out if you are into climbing and you're thinking that, hey, I might want to come up here and do some climbing. We always talk about the Eastern Sierras, but one thing we don't actually talk about too much is to the east is the mountain range called the White Mountains. And we don't really talk about that because the Eastern Sierras have more of a mystique to them. But the White Mountains, and we're standing here on White Mountain Peak, which actually sits at 14,252 feet, also has some amazing recreational opportunities. If you want to climb a 14,000 foot peak, White Mountain Peak is considered the easiest one in California to climb. You can actually drive your car up to a gate, which is about 7 miles from the summit. And instead of 22 miles at Mount Whitney, you only have to do 14 miles, quick math, only 14 miles up to White Mountain Peak. But one of the more amazing things here in the White Mountain range is the ancient Bristlecone pine forest. These are some of the oldest trees in the world. These trees are in excess of over 4,000 years old. There are a couple different groves, the Patriarch Grove and the Schulman Grove, that you can go visit here and check out these amazing trees that go back centuries. Some of the animals that you may see up in the White Mountains are mule deer, bighorn sheep, and my favorite animal of all time is the marmot. I wish I had a video of a marmot squealing, but we'll save that for next time. From here, from the White Mountains, we're going to start leaving the Owens Valley, and we're going to make our way up to another resort called Tom's Place at the top of the hill when we're driving up from Bishop. Tom's Place is a resort also built back in 1917. Interesting. People must have been coming out here in 1917 and doing a lot of building and recreating. This place has lots of cabins for rent. It houses barbecues and car shows in the summer, but it's also the entrance to one of my favorite hikes that heads up to another resort called Rock Creek. So we're going to make our way from here and head into the Sierras to a trailhead called Little Lakes Valley. And this is a great hiking spot for people who want to start fairly high. So this trailhead starts at 10,000 feet and pops up to some amazing lakes. And it's not too difficult of a hike. And it can go back pretty far, or you can stay pretty close. If I'm bringing friends out from the East Coast or people who haven't been hiking before and we want to go camping in the Eastern Sierras, this is the trail that I'll bring them on. It's usually lush with some greenery, there's water, and then there's some beautiful landscape that we can see as we walk around the area up there. As we make our way from the high Sierras, we're going to pop back down to the 395 to a wonderful fishing location that my good friend JP fishes at every year. There are cabins here at a lake called Convict Lake. Great fishing. Pro tip, if you go to the back of the lake, the fishing's a little bit better than right up on the front end. It'll take you a little bit to get back there, but it's a good fishing location. You may be saying, that's a strange name, Convict Lake. So I'm going to tell you a little history now. History lesson for the day. In 1871, there were a group of convicts that were coming down from Carson City, Nevada, and they were being chased by a sheriff called Robert Morrison. He ended up encountering these convicts in the back of the lake and capturing them, thus giving it the name Convict Lake. And that might be the, rated G version, but we'll go there with that. From Convict Lake, we're just going to hop over to the eastern side of the Eastern Sierra, or the eastern side of the 395, and we're going to pop into a little place called Wild Willies Hot Springs. This is managed by the BLM, and I tried to find a picture. I'm sorry, it's so blurry, but there were just people in all of it, and they're in bikinis and bathing suits, and I don't know if my eyes are so good, there might have been some nudity, so I wanted to keep it clear. So Wild Willies is out here. You just have to drive back on road that is just before the Mammoth. There's an airport there. It's a little green church, and then you're just going to head back. You're going to go past a few gates, and then you're going to take a right and drive on a dirt road for a little bit. This place used to be really like almost hidden, like people didn't know about it. And in the past few years when I've been up there, other than like right now, probably early in the morning, it's not very busy. But when you go late at night, it is packed. There are a lot of people out there. And if you do go, just be prepared for some nudity while you are there. We're going to hop over to a town called Mammoth. And this town is amazing for all of its recreational opportunities year round, from skiing to mountain biking to hiking. I've had friends who love coming up here. Just recently, they got hit with a huge snowstorm, and they actually had to close the 395 down just in Bishop, and they wouldn't let anybody up the mountain. There have been some snowstorms that I've had friends snowboarding all the way into August out here. Great place to backpack. You can leave from here, or you can come this way. If you are hiking like the John Muir Trail, this is a good stopping point if you only want to spend about 5 days on the trail. Good exit point. But one of the cool features here in the town of Mammoth that you will be able to see is an area called Devil's Postpile. And Devil's Postpile is a collection of columnar basalt rocks that shoot up out of the ground. And as we can see here, they look very symmetrical. It looks like we're sitting on top of something that somebody actually built or carved out here. These here get to be about 60 feet tall, and you can see them. You can take pictures from the bottom, which where we're at here, or if we go back up to where we are standing, we can actually stand on top of these. These are pretty amazing to see, and you need to go through the town of Mammoth to get there. So stop by, check out Devil's Postpile. Few more stops here before we call it quits is we're going to head over to a lake called Mono Lake. Mono Lake has a high alkaline content to it. It's actually one of the top 15 in the world with the salt content that is part of this lake. This is actually an ancient lake. They have dated it back to over 1 million years ago, and it is one of the oldest lakes in North America. As you can see with the big picture, as we move down to check it out a little bit closer, that looks like some of this water has been diverted, and it has. So water from this lake started getting diverted about 40 plus years ago. And as they started diverting these, the water from the lake, they started seeing these tufa towers is what they are called. So what this is this is when fresh water mixes with the salt water and creates and builds up these towers, and through diverting of the water, which is not what we want, but it has happened, we have now see these tufa towers that birds use. These are protected, so when you do stop by there and check it out, please try not to touch them or climb on them as you walk through them, because we want to keep them for people to not only one, view, but two, be able to study more. We're going to make our last stop today in the town of Bodie. Bodie is a historic state park that is in arrested decay. And what that means is this state park is not being fixed if something happens. If something breaks and falls, they no longer go in and repair it. They just try to maintain what is available there. To get to this state park, you're going to drive about 13 miles from the 395 east, and you will pay to get into the state park. There is parking available for you. But before we jump down into the state park, here's a map of what Bodie looked like back in the day. And this was a large mining town. It was founded by William S. Bodie in about 1859. He found gold out here, and they started building this up. And in about 20 years, 1880, there was about 10,000 people that lived here, and there were about 2,000 buildings in this area. There were about 30 gold mines, 65 saloons, brothels, gambling halls, opium dens, as well as some legitimate businesses like newspapers, churches, and a few banks, and even a school. But by 1880, this area started declining. They had mined almost all of the minerals out of the land that was here, and it started its decline. There is a story of a pastor who lived out here that wrote, "This town is a sea of sin, lashed by the tempest of lust and passion." This became a really Wild West town out here that people were afraid to go to after a while. There's an old story from a young girl who lived in San Francisco who prayed, and it was reported that she said, "Goodbye, God, we are going to Bodie." And Bodie still stands today as a remnant of the gold rush that was happening in California during the 1800s. So if you want to be able to go out and check out Bodie and see what it has there, it is an amazing place to visit. And this is where we are going to stop for today. There is a little bit more we could see as we head up more north into Bridgeport and pretty much make our way to Lake Tahoe. But we're going to do another video or another virtual tour coming up here, a little bit more about Lake Tahoe. So I thought this would be a good place to stop our virtual tour.